Hello and welcome back to Ultiworld's live coverage of the 2015 Youth Club Championships. There's the opening horn for this round. It's the 3 p.m. round. We're still in pool play here in Blaine, Minnesota. And we've got a great matchup for you in the U19 Girls Division between Cincinnati Belle and Colorado Cutthroat. I'm Charlie Eisenhood, joined alongside by Kyle Weisbrod, and we have a second game of the day for you here. Hope you were able to catch our coverage of Seattle and Oregon mixed in the U19 division earlier this morning. Cincinnati coming into this game looking very strong, as they always do, and hoping to perhaps be the team to topple the juggernaut Seattle girls, who have yet to lose a game at YCC since the tournament's inception. Game is underway, and we have a very quick turnover. Colorado in black, receiving the pull, but turning it over, and now we see a shot to the end zone, but it's knocked away by Colorado. Nice defensive effort there. And so we will see what this Colorado team can do against this very strong Cincinnati team. Colorado, a team that has been good in the last couple of years. Then we see a quick block there on the short forehand. So again, good field position for Cincinnati.
Yeah, Colorado in a bit of a rebuilding year here, and Cincinnati kind of a perennial contender, and contender for kind of that bracket spot. You know, obviously, as you mentioned, Seattle really owns this division. 10 years of play here, 10 champions, and all 10 of them have been that Seattle U19 women's team, just displaying dominance in this division. But Cincinnati, one of the solid programs around the country, perennial semis team, and have broken through the finals a couple of times as well.
That was Marley Akerson looking for Cara Peterson, but can't connect on the pass. So again, Cincinnati with their third chance in the red zone. Here looking for the break. Swing to the center. Haley Sampson dishes it, now goes up line. Sampson receives the score. Emily Dorsey with the assist for Cincinnati. And it's 1-0 with the Cincinnati break.
So Colorado in a bit of a rebuilding year, as I mentioned this year. They have perennial had a very strong team 2 years ago in the finals against a strong Seattle squad. But they have graduated a bunch of players. A lot of those players have gone on to play for Colorado Colley in the college division. And this year they're a bit younger. They've dropped seed. They're 1-3 here coming into this game. Cincinnati Belle on the other side, 4-0, undefeated this tournament, still with this game and one more game left in pool play. Top 2 teams from each of the 2 pools qualify for the semifinals here tomorrow. Cutthroat having trouble getting things started on offense. I don't believe they actually completed a pass there. All 3 possessions resulted in quick turnovers, and Cincinnati able to convert that third red zone possession for a goal.
Yeah, a lot of new players on this Colorado team. Really graduated a lot of talent over the last couple of years. So, you know, you see a couple 15-year-olds on the roster, 3 16-year-olds, and so they only have 4 seniors on the team. Emma Gann, who's going to Montana State, Abby Liu going to Colorado College, and Maya Otsuki going to Oregon. Lydia Downs, the other 18-year-old, not listed with a committed college. So see what they can do on their second offensive possession here. Disc with Kane Kleinkopf. She swings it over to the side and now comes back across to Akerson. Akerson, short blade up the line, but not quite enough underneath it. Cincinnati picks up. And a nice block. Abby Liu gets a piece of the disc there. So Colorado will take over in their attacking half. Akerson, hammer. Now Gann.
Nice movement here from Colorado, breaking through. Then they're having trouble hitting those continuation passes, getting that first one through the cup. It's the next one that they need, though. They want to put something together. Kleinkopf with the disc.
Yeah, looking after a tough first point, a lot better here working up against the wind, although we do see a turnover there. See if Cincinnati tries to play field position here. Catherine Fry moves it to the far sideline.
I expect we'll be calling Catherine Fry's name a lot here. Fry, the daughter of head coach David Fry, longtime head coach of Cincinnati Belle, and the third in a line of Frys, following her sisters who have both captained this team.
Many of the players on this Cincinnati team play for Holy Family Catholic, one of the best girls teams in the country, and has risen to be an exceptional high school program on both the girls and the boys side, as we see that huck from Cincinnati from Haley Sampson sail out of bounds.
So we have a slight breeze here. Right now Colorado working upwind against the Cincinnati defense. I expect we'll see Cincinnati play a lot of zone, mostly a pretty conservative zone, forcing Denver to have to work the disc back and forth here in search of those yards.
Hammer to the middle. Gann. And knocked away on the swing.
Yeah, so again, Colorado, lots of throws, but no yards gained. Now Cincinnati with a block right on the goal line and a really short field for them as they look to punch it in.
On the goal line. Inside throw, and it's knocked away. So both teams a little bit sloppy with the disc here in the early part of this game. That throw initially missed, but then tracked down by Gann. She's trapped on the sideline. Finds Kleinkopf. And now she'll step into a big throw. This is going to come back as the players pile underneath it, but it's caught by Colorado. So finally some yards gained. See if they can take advantage of the defense being a bit out of position, but no, we see Cincinnati reset into that zone. Swing to the sideline, and again trying to go up this near sideline, but throw turns over, and Colorado gives it back to Cincinnati. Checked in on the sideline by Emily Dorsey. Now swings to Maddie Sampson, one of the stronger cutters on this Cincinnati team.
And Sampson showing herself unafraid to take shots early in this game. She is almost every single time she's gotten the dish, she's picked it up and looked downfield for the big one. Not necessarily a terrible strategy given this level of play right now. Obviously trying to go downhill as much as possible. Gaining those yards is valuable even if you have turnovers.
Cutthroat works it to the near side. And Colorado doing a nice job swinging the disc. Another rip down the field. And back to Cincinnati, but nice job getting the disc down there, playing field position.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, I think, at this level. Here we are, it's a championship event, right? This is the best of the best. But we're also clearly still at a level, especially for the youth division on the girls' side, where these players are in the midst of their own development. And so trying to balance out, are we taking shots? Is the goal to win this game, which often means putting as far as possible, even if that might mean turnovers. And here's a great shot, but Cincinnati unable to come up with it, even if that means turnovers. Or does it make more sense to actually work to develop our skills and play kind of a little more fundamental ultimate where we're working it underneath a little more? And I think as a coach, I think that's a really challenging question. How do you answer that one? And I think it probably depends on each coach's personal philosophy and maybe what these games matter in individual games, right? Cincinnati here playing for a berth in the semifinals, and this is a big one for them.
And you notice the observer out on the field. If you didn't catch our coverage this morning, you may be surprised to see an observer here. This is the first time that any kind of observers have been on the field for the Youth Club Championships. But it's worth noting that these are not your typical observers. They are called instructional observers, and they are not making any kind of active calls. So they're not adjudicating on any kind of conflict. They are only here really to keep time, provide rules knowledge, and essentially help the players know what to do in various situations. They will not give their opinion on what may have transpired on the field. As we see Colorado hang a backhand that turns over and gives Cincinnati a red zone possession.
Yeah, and hopefully these observers are able to expedite the play on the field some and educate the players as they go along, so then help facilitate their own rules knowledge so they're able to do it better in the future. And here's a shot to the end zone. Hallie Sampson with the goal.
And that was Fry on the assist.
Oh, it looks like that one's out of bounds. This one's going to be
that was close.
Back to Colorado.
Right on the line there, but must have landed on that line as she leapt to make the catch. Colorado stuck on the sideline here. Stahl starting to get high. She'll throw a hammer. And it's taken away by Cincinnati. Maddie Sampson. Looking into the end zone. And she's got Catherine Fry for the Cincinnati score.
So one thing that's obvious so far in this game, Charlie, is that Cincinnati's scoring obviously up a couple points, but they're scoring consistently on red zone possessions, right? They have not yet shown that they can work it 30, 40, 50 or more yards down the field to put it in. And I think this goes back to this idea of what do you do if you're Cutthroat? Or do you keep looking for those big gaps to put it deep as much as possible regardless of outcome, and then hopefully put on a strong defense that forces early turnovers? Or are you working on developing those kind of fundamental skills and strategy to work the disc down the field and possibly continue to give Cincinnati these very short fields to work with?
Our coverage today is brought to you by Cut Camps and USA Ultimate. Big thanks to both for their support. Make sure you tune in for our upcoming coverage as well. We've got one more game this afternoon, a great matchup between North Carolina Triforce and Minnesota Superior in the U19 Boys Division. Triforce, of course, the defending champion here at YCC. Again, a very strong team, and we'll see if the hometown Minnesota team can challenge them. That game starts 5 p.m. Central, just after the conclusion of this game. Colorado picking up and immediately shooting deep and over the head of the intended receiver, Akerson.
This one, though, puts Cincinnati in a really tough spot, though, right on the goal line, having to work the full 70. It looks like Colorado's going out with a matchup defense, going person to person here. Let's see what the force is.
You know, and here's a question for you. If you're Cincinnati and you feel confident about your ability to win this game, do you work it? And do you try to work these long distances, or do you huck, as they do here? 3 white shirts, only 1 black, and Cincinnati comes down with a disc. Nice grab there on sort of having to step back to make the catch. And this throw comes up a little bit short. So back to Colorado on the goal line.
Yeah, Kara Sieber there with making that really nice grab on the big huck. So working at 70 yards, but unable to come up with it. And again, another red zone turnover. Maddie Sampson with the point block.
Beautiful. Quick hands fired into the lane there. And so to go back to my previous point, you know what's coming. You're going to have to play some teams that are very talented, as we see a nice backhand. Oh, but it's dropped. Beautiful throw there from Fry, but incomplete.
So I've been in this situation before, and I'm not sure I necessarily got it right. When I was coaching the Padilla High School girls, we would oftentimes face teams that we were stronger than, but in conditions, maybe it was particularly windy, where we were in boats like this. And Sampson with another nice D. She's been all over the place here for Cincinnati Belle on the defensive end. Fry taking a shot right away to Sampson. Nice, puts it right in. And Cincinnati on the board again, 3-0.
Nice touch on the throw from Fry. She's having a good game as well. And Coach David Fry pointed out both the Sampson twins and his daughter as players to keep an eye on this Cincinnati team, and we can see why. They're making their mark early as Cincinnati takes the 3-point lead.
So back to what I was saying, I've been in these situations before, and what we've tended to do is take shots early, especially when we have to go up the whole field. And you can't play too much near your own end zone. If you make turnovers there, even teams that you may be stronger than can put it in. And it's, I'm not sure that's necessarily the right choice developmentally. But the logic being that we'll have an opportunity to work it in. We'll work it in from 30 yards in, right? As opposed to trying to work it 70 yards and taking those risks of giving teams very short fields to punch it in. So I think that's the boat Cincinnati is in now, and I think they're making similar choices here. They're opting to take the deep shots when they're defending near their own end zone, and then looking to take a little more conservative work it in approach when they get 20 yards out.
Turned into a beautiful day here in Blaine, Minnesota. Some spotty showers this morning, but now the sun has come out a bit and temperatures have come up. And really the wind has died down. I think this is probably the least wind we've seen all day as of right now. So Colorado still looking to get their first point on the board as their offense gets back onto the field. And this throw hanging, but not enough for either of the Colorado players to quite get there.
Yeah, Mitra Kermani coming from the offside had a look at that one. A strong throw there from Cutthroat. Cincinnati now working. Here's Sampson.
Sampson ahead, and now a big shot down the field. What a perfect throw. Oh, and despite the nice defensive effort, a beautiful catch down in the far end zone, and we may have a couple players down with an injury, however.
Fantastic throw there from Belle's Emily Dorsey, though. Just puts that forehand out to space. Looks like both players injured, but an ankle. Not sure what's wrong with the Cutthroat defender in the play.
See players taking a rest as we see Cincinnati player being helped off the field. Hope she's okay. Three players converged on one spot there, and she doesn't look like she's putting much weight on that left leg right now. So an already short roster for Cincinnati. Only 14 players on this team. We'll be hoping she's able to feel a little better, looking at that left ankle on the sideline. But the goal stands for Cincinnati. Nice, very nice huck and a great catch. Cincinnati up 4-0 now here on Cutthroat.
And Cincinnati showed some really nice offense there. And it wasn't just to pick it up and huck it. They actually worked a couple underthrows first before they took that shot there from Emily Dorsey. And a very nice shot. It wasn't just a shot because we need to get this downfield. It was a shot because there was a really great receiver in good position, and it was put very nicely. That was very good ultimate there from Cincinnati Belle. You know, one thing I think that's interesting about the women's division this tournament, or possibly not, maybe it's the opposite of interesting, is that it's this fight to see who can challenge Seattle in the finals. And one thing that I think is interesting about that is that there's been years in the past where there have been really strong challengers, but but the difficulty of getting to that finals has proven a barrier at some points. And the fight that you have to get through all these teams to get to face Seattle. And Seattle always has a lot of depth. You know, they're the program to beat. They've got elementary school teams and middle school teams all feeding into this. So you've got the average age of the Seattle team at, you know, or sorry, the average playing experience of the Seattle team at 6 to 7 years, where all these other teams are, you know, may have a couple of players who've got some experience.
Kleinkopf with a shot to the end zone, but it's intercepted by Maddie Sampson.
Maybe they have a couple of players with experience, but they're working with a much smaller base of experience, you know, and a lot of players on these teams have, you know, maybe 1, 2, 3 years of playing experience. So not only do you have to get to the finals to face Seattle, but you have to do it in a way that allows you to have legs and energy to challenge that juggernaut.
Throw to the sideline is dropped. So back to Colorado. Kleinkopf shooting deep again, but not connecting.
Yeah, Maddie Sampson really racking up the defensive stats here for Belle. She seems to be right where Colorado wants to throw it every time.
Picked up by Fry. Looking for Maddie Sampson. She's got it. On the far side, Cincinnati trying to go up that sideline, but opts to go back to the middle. And Fry's throw to Maddie Sampson misses the target. So now a nice connect to the middle of the field. Cara Peterson with it. But no continuation right now for Colorado, having trouble finding that flow, but again, they connect. This time Michaela Seward with it. But her throw into the end zone does not connect. She was looking for Abby Liu.
Just behind her there was a great opportunity for Cutthroat. A couple completed passes down there, put them right on the goal line, and had the open receiver. And I think there's another example of one of the big differences you see between kind of that beginning initial level of play and then that next level is the prioritization of offensive skills, right? Right now there's a huge value on the players that can throw and catch, either put up big hucks or just consistently throw 20-yard throws. Fremoth comes down with that Sampson huck. And much less priority on necessarily good defense. You see very few players kind of playing really strong defensive positional defense out here. And the reason is because it's just not very prioritized. What matters more to your success as a team here is the skills, is the offensive skills. And so that's what they're working on. That's what this group of players and this demographic needs to get better at. And I think as you make that gap to that next level, so college play or maybe national team play, what gets prioritized is how well can you hold your defensive space, because everyone has those offensive skills. Now it's like how much can you disrupt that offensive play with your defensive abilities. And I think that's a really hard jump for a lot of these players to make, both mentally and physically. I think mentally you get so used to thinking, oh, I'm going to get open whenever I need to, and I don't need to put out that kind of effort on defense, and I don't even know what I need to be doing defensively, just because as a coach you don't need to talk about that much at this level. You can kind of rely on just the offensive, like the focus on offense constantly at the high school level of play. And I think that's where we're going to see kind of, those are the signs that we'll see that our high school scene is maturing, is when defense becomes a big priority at this level, where what players are doing defensively is something that you look at and say, oh wow, look at that person's footwork, look at that person's positional ability. They're really denying that cutter the space they want.
Yeah, you do see it with some teams. We were talking about it in our earlier game. Some of the Seattle players really do look like they have some of those defensive skills, knowing how to use their body to stop the upline cut, doing a good job of denying the reset in a way that takes away both the obvious upline danger, but also gives you a chance to make a play on a backfield cut. And it's a good point, though, because this is my first time at YCC. You don't see a lot of sophisticated defenses or individual brilliance in terms of footwork and defensive skills. As we see Cincinnati turning it over, coming out of the timeout. Colorado going to shoot deep. What a pretty throw that is. Is it going to hang up for enough? But no, we see again Maddie Sampson down there making sure that there's no chance for a play. Fry runs down, picks it up for Cincinnati. There's Sampson again. Sampson's got a cutter. Throw's going to hang, and it's going to get knocked away nicely by Fiona Dragonfly.
Dragonfly, that's a fantastic last name.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and I think that's why when you're watching this game, you may see a lot of throws behind receivers or throws that hang up, and then we get these defensive challenges. That's where you see the D's is on throws that have more errant throws, whereas in higher levels of play, those things are happening on much better throws. You're not necessarily seeing huge errors that create defensive excitement. And I think you're right. On the boys' side of play, that shift is starting to happen. You're starting to see more and more defensive focus. And I think to win a YCC championship on the boys' side of the game and the mixed side of this game, you need to have a solid defensive level of skills. You need it across the board. And the more pressure you can put, and that's what we saw in that Oregon-Seattle game. Seattle was putting on that defensive pressure. Oregon was not able to, and that was the gap in that game.
Absolutely. Kleinkopf with it, but intercepted by you-know-who, Maddie Sampson. Now she's looking to the end zone, and she's got herself an assist as well. Cincinnati up 5-0 now on Colorado, and just controlling this game. And you know what you said about Maddie Sampson seems right. She's always where they're looking to throw it.
Yeah, she seems like she has really great awareness. She's playing it smart and great hands and great throws, too, to match. So definitely a highlight player here for this Belle team early in this game as Cincinnati takes the 5-0 lead on Colorado.
This is, let's see, the 8th year that Cincinnati has sent a U19 girls team to YCC. Started in 2007.
Yeah, all but 2 years for Cincinnati Belle. And, this tournament has grown so much. I remember the first year of it in 2005, there were 7 boys teams, 5 girls teams, and 4 mixed teams that attended this tournament. And now it has exploded in popularity. We have 72 teams here in 5 separate divisions. They've added U16 boys and girls as well. And I hear there's talk about in the next couple of years possibly adding another division of play, maybe a U13 division. I know USAU is prioritizing getting kids playing in elementary and middle school level, and that will certainly up the level here in the U19 division if we get some more girls and boys playing at that age. And the other thing too, I think there's such a there's a whole it's a watershed, it's a game changer to get kids playing at that young age. I think by the time you get to high school, kids have kind of found their sport in a lot of cases, and so oftentimes Ultimate's getting kids who might be disaffected from other sports, but if you can get kids hooked at that young age, you'll start stealing maybe better athletes from sports who just like Ultimate better, and when they compare it to a sport they are also starting to play like a soccer or tennis, they might choose Ultimate over that. And we've seen that. I think we've talked about Seattle a bunch, but Seattle who has a very strong elementary and middle school scene, you're starting to see these athletes who could be playing any sport they want to at the high school level, choosing Ultimate over those other sports, and the resultant difference in the talent level of those teams.
Sarah Fremont making that very nice catch, and we see as Catherine Fry receives the disc, again wants to take a timeout. So another timeout here for Cincinnati as they have a chance to go up 6-0. Breaks keep coming for Cincinnati, and I think you can really, it's clear there's a skill gap between these two teams. And I think one of the interesting things about YCC is that every year it's kind of hard to know how competitive a team is going to be. This Colorado team is very good in the last 2 years, but the graduating players left some big holes. And
there's a lot of factors going into that. Obviously, the seniors graduating that impact the team every single year. And you're losing your best players often when you lose those seniors. Your most experienced players for sure, especially if we're talking about players who've been playing for fewer than 4 years. Graduating those top end of the roster is going to make a big difference. But the other thing too is these teams, like we talked about in the first game, don't get a ton of time to practice together. So the level of play you get when you start the season, which is often tryouts. You might have a handful of practices. You might not get everyone there at those practices. Means that you're not really building much. You don't get a lot. You don't get to implement a lot of sophisticated systems. So you don't get, the coaches don't get to have as big an influence necessarily on the outcome. It's here's the talent you've got, and let's see what you can do with it. And so year to year, those things can really change based on that talent level. I think when we get those longer term programs, when you start seeing elementary and middle school play, I think we'll start seeing a lot more consistency based on which communities are building those things and building them the right way. Looks like pick call will bring this one back.
Yep, that's right. Comes back to Emily Dorsey, one of the 3 18-year-olds on the Cincinnati roster. But the pick did not affect the catch. So the instructional observer out there kind of directing traffic a little bit, helping the players understand this situation. So the disc will stay with the receiver, Haley Sampson. She steps around for a backhand, but can't get it past the mark as it catches the turf.
So one thing that I think was interesting about that, it looked like the observer actually corrected the outcome that the players made. It looks like the players were all okay with sending it back, and the observer stepped in there to say, no, that's not actually what happens, which I think, again, I think these are probably kind of philosophical debates about what the role of observers are, but I think that's an interesting question about who's ultimately responsible for making sure the right outcome happens. Is it the players or is it the observer? And my understanding was that the observers were there in case players had questions, but the observers weren't to step in, even if the players may be wrong.
Yeah, I think I think there's been some discussion between coaches and observers about what to do and what role to take, because I think this is new for many of these observers. They may have never done anything like this where they have only been there to assist. But, right, is making sure the right thing happens the same? I mean, is that an active call there? Maybe a bit, as we see another Cincinnati score as Dorsey goes into the end zone for Haley Sampson, and they take a 6-0 lead.
Yeah, and I think, obviously we're kind of in this really interesting crossroads for the sport. We've got the pro leagues here with referees, but they've got the integrity system this kind of balances it out. We've got WIFDIF trying their own system with game advisors. We've obviously got observers for USAU. We've got a lot of self-officiated play altogether, and now we have this new role of instructional observer here at the YCCs. And I think it's an interesting question about where does Ultimate want to go with the sport? Who should be controlling the way the game is played? And then beyond that, how do you make sure that's happening? How do you make sure, if players are to be responsible, how do you make sure that they are being responsible? And if observers are to be responsible, or referees, how do you make sure we have them trained to the right level? And if we have some mix of those things, how do we keep all of that stuff balanced in the right way, right? And I think this is a big challenge. Like, if we decide, well, for our professional leagues or for these showcase settings, we want referees, like that's the way the sport should go. It's hard for referees to learn the game if they have no opportunity to referee except in the professional leagues. So do you use lower levels of play to train referees? And what does that mean for those lower levels of play to have these referees that don't know what they're doing? And similarly, like with the players, how does that work? It looks like we've got halftime here. Is this game to 11?
Games to 11 in Pool B because of the number of teams. There are 7 teams in Pool B for the U19 girls. It is halftime. Cincinnati leading 6-0 over Colorado. You can see the players having some fun out there in this halftime break. We'll be back in just a little bit with the start of the second half. Welcome back to Ulti World's live coverage of the Youth Club Championships 2015. Cincinnati leads 6-0 over Colorado here in this U19 girls matchup. Second half about to get underway, and there's the pull from Colorado to Cincinnati. Ulti World's coverage today brought to you by Cut Camps and USA Ultimate. So Cincinnati looking to keep the clean sheet going here in the second half. Nice little throw over the top into the hands of Sarah Freemuth. She steps around, throws the break backhand back to the center. And a throw out to the far corner sails out of bounds. It will be Abby Liu to pick it up for Colorado. Quick turnover from Colorado, now shot to the end zone for Cincinnati, and they've got another score on the board, 7-0 now. Nice work here from Cincinnati. And I wonder, at some point, do you start to think about resting your starters? I mean, I normally would say that, but I think with such a short roster for Cincinnati, I think they probably are already running pretty open lines.
Well, and I think the other side, too, is if you start resting your starters, what does that mean for everyone else? Do you have really long points? And if those long points are so long that you're exhausting your role players, which, again, with a short team, are, you want to, those players are going to need to be fresh. I mean, your goal is, I think, to get out of this game and play as efficiently as possible in the remainder. And I think right now they're doing that very well. They're getting short field turnovers and doing generally a very good job of punching it in. So I think Cincinnati is probably very happy with the way this game is going right now. I imagine they'll keep subbing pretty similar. Although we do see there is no Maddie Sampson on this line. Oh, excuse me, she is actually on that line. She is the first person on there.
Ulti World's coverage here at YCC brought to you by Cut Camp. Cut Camp is one of the largest ultimate summer camps in the country, with 3 camps in Chicago and 2 in North Carolina. This past summer, they had 218 total campers from over 30 states and 3 countries. The observer out there discussing some time management and maybe the offsides indicator. So the instructional observers are holding up an X over their head to indicate that an offsides has taken place, but the teams are required to call it. Pull to about the brick mark, picked up by Colorado, looking deep right away. See a relatively unstructured offense here from Colorado. Lots of inexperience out there on the line, but great opportunity to learn here at YCC against good teams like this one, Cincinnati. A backhand into the end zone is taken away. Nice defense down there from Gann.
Oh, and Cutthroat has a receiver free deep, but not picking up quick enough to recognize that. But here comes the shot.
And, great instincts there. That's the throw. And in time, the execution comes.
Unfortunately for Colorado, though, that one went out of bounds pretty early here, so they're going to walk this one up and put it into play. Past midfield here as Dorsey pulls it up.
Checked into play. Dorsey. Stall getting high here, but Dorsey finds a cutter. Mary Claire Phibb. Now Dorsey looking to the end zone. She's got Maddie Sampson. Maddie Sampson right near that goal line, but I don't think she's in. So she will ground check.
And Dorsey busts free.
Great speed from Dorsey, and she gets the goal.
So Belle continuing to roll here, up 8-0. And Belle is showing, more advanced strategy and skills, and just a greater depth too. They've got more players who know what they're doing. They understand the space on the field a little better. a slightly higher level of athleticism as well. But what I think accentuates that athleticism is just knowing where to go and going 100%.
Right.
You know, and I think this is one of those things that when you're coaching brand new players that sometimes it's hard for new players to understand. It's like, even if you don't know for sure where to go, at least go there 100% and then get out of that spot at 100%. We'd much prefer that than going to the right place at 70 or 75%. And Colorado and Cincinnati is definitely going there hard. You see a lot of people running hard for Belle out there. And that really does. It shows, it makes it look like they're the more athletic team, where that may not necessarily be the case. But they're just being so much more assertive about how they take and create space.
You know, I also think it's, sometimes people talk about, oh, you don't want to just blow a team out, but I think it's respectful to the opponent as well to play hard and sort of set an example of what it's like to play at sort of that top tier. And so, you know, you see that strike cut from Dorsey. I mean, she had no defender within 25 feet of her, but she still ran hard to the spot, got the strike cut, got the score, and I think that, you know, that's showing respect as much as playing in a, you know, a well-spirited, tight game. It's not just about, you know, you don't want to just start goofing around out there when you're up big like they are in this game.
Well, I completely agree, and I think as an opponent, Colorado learns more from playing teams that are going as hard as they can. It exposes where they're weak and where they need to get stronger. And for Belle, I think it's a big. You can't take your foot off the gas pedal mentally, and then expect that you're going to play in the game to win the pool in the next round and be successful if you've lost that mental edge. So I think it helps them as well.
Well, you know the Seattle girls team. How do you think this Cincinnati team could stack up, assuming that they see each other?
You know, in the same way that Cincinnati here clearly has like an assertive and skill gap over this Colorado team, I think we will see, if Cincinnati faces off against Seattle in the finals, a similar level of gap. Seattle, like I said, they've got a lot of players who've been playing for 6, 7, and 8 years. They've got players at the top level, players like Hallie Dunham, who play for Underground, right? They who just came back from playing a Colorado Cup as the starting handler for one of the top 20 club women's teams in the country. It's hard to put into words the gap between that level of skill and experience and what we're seeing right now, even from Cincinnati, who looks very strong against Colorado.
Katie Brown throwing ahead to Haley Sampson, but Sampson drops it on the upline cut, but Colorado gives it right back. Cincinnati with a chance to get within 2 points of a victory here. Brown to pick up. Brown headed off to Franciscan, a local university. And a nice grab in the end zone from Sampson.
Haley Sampson that one time with the grab. Both the Sampson twins really doing work in this game, proving to be tough matchups on both offense and defense here for Colorado Cutthroat. You know, back to the question about Seattle, you know, I mentioned Hallie Dunham. It would be a mistake to think, oh, Seattle's getting it done with 1 or 2 players. There's something very deep, and they're a very skilled team. They've got a number of other players who may not be at the level of Underground, but who are competing for that spot or could be fighting for those spots. And that depth is almost across the board for Seattle. And so what you'll see, I think, when we see them play a team like Cincinnati is the gap. And you know, I think there's some players out here on Belle who can definitely play with them. And at the top, Cincinnati players will be played 14 or 15 points,
right.
And that's going to be a big challenge.
So Cincinnati cruising past Colorado here. Bull lands near midfield, rolls to just a few yards in front of the brick mark. Colorado looking to get on the board here. Be a nice moral victory, if nothing else. On the goal line here, maybe their best chance in a great while to get into the end zone. Kleinkopf. Good denial defense on the cutters, and Kleinkopf's swing pass is a turnover.
I think we saw Cincinnati's defense is relaxed there on the first part of that point as Colorado was able to work it down to the goal line. But I think at that point they recognized hey, we've got a shutout going. We need to keep pushing here. And they stepped it up, and here they are on offense, just moving down the field. And a great shot here from Haley Sampson. Just puts that one out to space. And great response here from Belle on the goal line. And, ooh, turnover there. Suki with a bit of a misread there. There is a slight downwind in that direction, and I think she didn't expect the wind to push the disc just that far. She was unable to come up with that one.
Short floating throw to the sideline. Now, little blade up the line to Sieber. And although the first two players missed it, Emily Wang was there to pull it down. Wang stands at 5'10", the tallest player on the Cincinnati team.
And Katie Brown calling a timeout here for Belle as they are in the red zone, looking to take their 10th point.
You know, obviously they don't really need these timeouts right now, but I like the decision to take strategic timeouts in spots like this where in later games you may need to have that timeout and be thinking, oh, this would be a good time for me to take a timeout. You know, we're struggling a little bit to move the offense here in the red zone with a chance to break.
Well, certainly, and efficiency here in these games matters for them later in the tournament. This point, relative to most of the points in this game, has been a pretty long one. Cutthroat has had 2 times where they've worked it down the field and at least put them all the way down and made Belle have to work 70 yards. So they've gone up and down the field 4 times now from the starting point. And you know, turnover in the red zone here could be costly if it means lots of extra 70s here for both teams.
USA Ultimate supporting Ulti World's YCC coverage this weekend, and you can support USA Ultimate. If you go to rallyup.com/ufly, that's UFLY-2015, you can donate money to support not only a YCC team of your choice, but also the USA Ultimate Foundation, which is the new philanthropic arm of USAU and is raising money for development opportunities and local grassroots programs. So you can go pledge money to a YCC team, and the YCC team that raises the most money, or the first couple of teams in fact, will win some great prizes, including free uniforms, free YCC bids next year, free discs, and you'll also of course be supporting the USA Ultimate Foundation, which is doing some great stuff already. So check that out, rallyup.com/ufly-2015. As we watch Cincinnati turn it over out of the timeout. I've seen a lot of that today. Teams taking timeouts and then promptly turning it over. And so Colorado looking to work the distance here.
Wind's trying to pick up as well.
Yeah, you can hear the wind.
Looks like a foul call is going to bring this one back.
So the disc will come back to Akerson.
Akerson having shown no qualms about letting it fly once in a while. She may be taking a shot here after the disc gets checked back in.
She's got some surprising strength behind her throw. She's only 5 feet tall. Kleinkopf with it now. Nice grab underneath. It's Didi Sadecki. And this throw to the outside is knocked away by Jade Link for Cincinnati. So picked up by Katie Brown. Brown to the middle for Haley Sampson. And then continued to Wang. Now going up that far sideline, but just a little too much oomph on that throw. And another turnover. And I think clearly Cincinnati working into their bench a little bit here, but they're going to have to be a little bit more careful with the disc in the red zone against the top teams that they face. They've had open cutters, but have just missed those throws, and you won't be able to get the disc back as much against teams like Seattle.
And this has been a long point for them. And certainly, this is not what they want to see out of this game, or this point specifically.
Nice connection there as Kleinkopf finds Sadecki down the field. Sadecki, no mark, just waiting for someone to get rid of the disc to, but she turns it over on the throw to the sideline, so back to Cincinnati. Aggressive marking there from Lydia Downs for Colorado.
And both teams breathing really hard after this point. It's been a long point for both teams. We have a timeout, lots of turns, lots of working the disc up and down the field with no scores yet. Haley Sampson with the disc. And a turnover is going to give Cutthroat a really short field to work with here and maybe an opportunity for their first score.
They had a chance earlier on this point, and they couldn't find an open cutter, and turned it over on a swing pass. We'll see what they can do with it this time. Kleinkopf picking up. Kleinkopf swing, nice catch against some strong defense. Sadecki dishes it back. And now a shot. Is she in the end zone? Yes, she is, and Colorado is thrilled as they get on the board for the first time this game. Break up the no-hitter, if you will.
Harper Ellsworth with the reception there, and Akerson with the assist for Colorado, and Cutthroat getting on the board.
Well, and that's, you know, once you get into a game like this, of course, that's your goal.
I've got to ask now that it's over, have we ever had a shutout on an Ulti-World stream game?
No, we have not.
Well, that streak is still alive.
Yeah. So they will not be the ones to have to deal with that record. This, in fact, I have to say, this is probably one of the biggest blowouts we've ever had on a stream game. Of course, we know a lot more about other divisions. It's a lot harder to sort of assess coming into YCC. I think it's hard for USA Ultimate to seed this tournament. I think even coaches don't necessarily know how good their teams will be as they show up here.
Well, and I think also this developmental level, small gaps in skill can really lead to pretty big gaps in results, whereas the higher levels, that's not necessarily the case, right? That even like at Club Open division, a 15-11 game is a blowout, right? And it's because there's a gap in skill there, but that gap in skill is probably the same size as this gap in skill in some level. It's just that it
manifests very differently.
It manifests very differently. When you have fewer turnovers.
Right.
The percentage of turnovers in this game is not all that off. When you have a game with 100 turnovers, an 8 turnover difference is an 8-point game.
Right.
But a game with 10 turnovers, it's not the same.
Absolutely. It's a great point. You forget sometimes that you get all caught up in the discussion of holds and breaks, that really this is a game of keep away, and it's about who turns it over a little bit less.
Certainly.
Maddie Sampson holding for Cincinnati. Hits Dorsey. And a turnover out.
At lower levels of play, it's hard to make up in the Club Open division. It's hard to make up a 3-point gap, but that's not necessarily true as you get to level play like this, where a 3-point gap just means if I can get on defense, play the defense that we want, and start dictating the pace of play, and we figure out what the weaknesses in the other team's offense are, we might figure it out.
Catherine Fry picks it up and rips a backhand, but just out of the reach of her intended receiver. So back to Colorado. Oh, and a nice layout catch there to save possession from Akerson. Akerson looking for a cutter, nobody there.
I think she is calling a contact or possibly a foul here, stopping play. Looks like they're looking over the observer, they're checking it in.
She gets it ahead into the hands of Gann, who puts up a big backhand. And a nice defensive effort down there again from Maddie Sampson, who just seems to have a nose for not only being where she needs to be to make a play, but also great ability to read the disc. She got up right where she needed to and knocked it out of the air.
Yeah, she's showing to be herself a strong standout athlete here in this division. Just dominant in this game.
Here's Maddie Sampson. And I believe that throw was hand blocked, at least partially blocked. So nice play from Michaela Seward. And a first throw turnover there from Colorado. Picked up by Fry. Fry floating a backhand to the end zone, and it's got this time. Great grab down there. Nice throw from Fry. Nice job putting air underneath it. And Cincinnati now 1 point away from a victory here.
And for Colorado, that point was a win for them. That was a very strong line that Cincinnati put out there, and Colorado doing a good job creating turnovers, putting some pressure on them. Went with a straight-up mark that time, forcing Colorado to have to throw, or excuse me, Cincinnati to have to throw wide towards the sidelines. Even got a point block out of that, and had some opportunities. Obviously, not able to generate a lot of offense necessarily, but definitely create some turns, more turns than they've gotten out of that top line from Cincinnati earlier in this game.
Be sure to stay tuned. Coming up next at 5 p.m. Central Time, we've got a fantastic matchup between North Carolina Tri-Force and Minnesota Superior in the U19 Boys Division. And that really should be a great game. So we hope you'll tune in and check that out. Tri-Force, maybe a team that could repeat. Very, very strong team. They've got 8 players on their team that played college last year, including a couple of players that won gold with UNC at the national championships. So,
correct me if I'm wrong, those two teams are both undefeated, and
That's
going
right.
for the winner of that
pool.
game goes on to the semifinals, and the loser has no chance. So lots on the line in that game.
Yes, a very interesting format for the U19 boys with big pools, but only one team out of each pool advancing into the championship bracket straight to the semifinals.
You know, I know my opinion on this is unpopular, having talked to a bunch of the teams in the Open Division so far this weekend, but I like it. I like that every game matters, and that there's this kind of excitement, and every team has to kind of respond and figure out things on the fly, and there's not much margin for error. I think it lends itself to a really exciting tournament. I also think, you know, when we created this event 10 years ago, our goal was to make it big, to make it a celebration of Youth Ultimate and have as many teams here as possible. And the vision was that it would fall in line with some of USA Volleyball's largest events, which were 64 teams in the division and just giant events. And you know, I think that the idea that we create this event as a celebration of Youth Ultimate, not necessarily putting the focus on winning and winning all the time, but actually create it as a celebration, means that we're going to have big formats that may not give a lot of margin for error, and that's okay. I think that is an okay thing and an okay trade-off here.
Tip disc there for Colorado. It's back over to Cincinnati. Yeah, you know, and I think it was really nice yesterday walking around, seeing the players all gathered together in one room having dinner together, and then at the trade night trading jerseys. Some players came with 15, 20 jerseys and were bartering aggressively like salespeople as they tried to get that sublimated jersey for their spot sub jersey. So and then you know, you see the coaches exhibition game last night, all of the coaches coming together on East Coast and West Coast teams playing against each other as we see the shot to the end zone get knocked down by Colorado. And players were cheering on their coaches, and it was this great fun pickup atmosphere. You know, there were some scuba points, and it really is, and it's a nice thing. And it's been interesting, especially talking to the New York team who's staying in the same hotel as me, because many of them have never played in a tournament before. They've played individual games, but they've never played in the morning. Like, many of them were like, how do I prepare to play at 8:30 in the morning what do I eat for breakfast? Because they've only ever played afternoon games in New York City.
That's a fascinating cultural shift for the sport,
Right.
that we've been moving more and more to these kind of single game settings, especially in high school play, and that they missed out on this tournament experience, which I think is, for me growing up, it was a big part of my kind of initiation to Ultimate, was to go to these events and see 16 or 20 teams competing at the same place. And a really cool thing. And I've heard some people talking like, oh, I think next year, or I've heard that USAU is going to start moving towards qualifications, like regional tournaments to qualify for YCC. And my take is I'd rather see continued expansion. This field side is huge. They can afford, there's certainly more space for teams. We're not using all the fields. There's lots of space in between the fields right now. I'd like to see it get bigger and bigger. I think that this idea of a huge celebration for Youth Ultimate around the country is a really powerful thing. It's great to be able to show up in this place and see these teams all from different levels, different experiences, but all sharing their passion for the sport.
Timeout on the field. I totally agree. I think one thing I've been hearing around a bit is that they're also maybe this is part of the same thing, but trying to start to create some traveling club teams that instead of just playing together at this one tournament, play multiple tournaments together. Maybe, right now some teams play at a tournament, but it's usually like a local club tournament, and they play as one of the bottom seeded teams and mostly get crushed. But then if you had youth tournaments happening during the summertime that were not simply high school based, then you could have teams that play 3 or 4 tournaments culminating in the YCC championship event.
Certainly, and I don't think, I think you can have more regional level tournaments or local tournaments without them being qualifiers, right? They're just more opportunities to play, make them more accessible, and allow this experience of playing on a club team a longer lifespan, right? We talked about the idea that, most of these kids, this is the only tournament they'll play together. They don't get a lot of opportunities. And Seattle's had that a little bit. They've had the Fries program for the last few years where they've got, the top kids from all these different high schools play together, but they don't really have a lot of opportunities to go places. They play club sectionals and club regionals. They might play a college tournament here and there, but they're not playing other teams at their level. And it would be really cool to see, more local regional tournaments where Seattle gets to play San Francisco and the Vancouver club teams in a smaller setting. And that's what exists for other sports like soccer or baseball, right, where you have these club events outside of the high school play.
Colorado gets another block after the timeout. Picked up by Kleinkopf. Stall starting to get high. And a throw up the sideline is knocked down. That was Catherine Evers-Smith with the block. Here's Fry to pick it up for Cincinnati. Looking to close this game out here on the upwind point. Fry trying to direct some traffic. Throwing out into space, looking for Haley Sampson, but a little too much on the throw.
Yeah, that's just not reading the wind right. She put a lot of edge on that, and it was, and the wind was pushing right into that downward edge and pushed it right down, so it was not going to hang up for Haley Sampson there.
Carr Peterson bodies out her defender, now puts a shot to the end zone. And again, I think you sort of see here, Colorado's doing some things right. I mean, that's really the right look. She had a cutter with a couple steps coming back over to that 4 side with some room, but the execution hasn't been there, and that's obviously been the difference in the game. I think, in 2 years, this Colorado team could be a team that's back up towards the top of this girls division.
And a lot of, exactly. I mean, they've got very high-level coaching out here. Ann Pogariller, who's the head coach, and Lindsay Cross out here. They've both longtime players for the top women's club teams in Colorado. They know a ton. And they've got some decent athleticism here. Cutthroat puts it in as they create a short field. So they've got that opportunity. A lot of it is just time on task, right? It's getting those throws over and over and over again, playing year-round, getting the opportunities to play year-round, doing camps, stuff like that where you get to touch the disc more and more frequently. And if your season is a 2.5-month or 3-month high school season, you may not get all those reps that you need to keep developing. And I think that's one of those big challenges. And I know I've mentioned Seattle a lot of times. I do think they're the model of Youth Ultimate right now. And I think one thing that they have is lots of opportunities. They have lots of places where kids can get better, lots of opportunities, lots of little tournaments, hat tournaments. They obviously have, I mentioned the Fries program. The Fries actually have ended officially this summer. But there's something that will come up and replace that, of course. So that there's this kind of nonstop opportunity to get playing time and get experience and build your skills, and starting from a very young age.
What do you think that if you're a city that wants to start to develop something like that at the younger level, what does it take? Because I think that's one thing. You know, people look at Seattle and say, well, that's great, but we can't even do X, Y, and Z. So how do we get to that point? So where does it start? You know, is it about buy-in from club players, coaching?
It's a great question. One thing that blows my mind in Seattle is the culture of giving back that they have. There are so many players who go out there and commit tons of time to playing and commit just as much time to coaching. And it starts at a young level. They've got high school players who are mentoring and coaching elementary and middle school teams. I have 6 of my players on my University of Washington women's college team as Cincinnati Belle wins the game. I have 6 of my players on my college team who are coaching high school alongside playing. And what's really great about that is it's not only giving it back, but it's also good for their own development. They're learning as they coach. And then obviously teams like Riot. Riot gives back so much to the community. And I've seen more and more teams changing that, and that's a big thing. The other side, and I know our broadcast about the end, one thing that Seattle did years ago that has been very powerful is that they got the sport into middle schools as an official middle school sport. And hooking kids and getting kids playing at that young age, they start playing Ultimate before, at the same time they have the opportunities to play other sports, and they fall in love with the sport at the same time, so they're not coming into Ultimate either having been disaffected or not having opportunities to play those other sports, but they're choosing Ultimate over those other sports. And I think that is a huge and powerful difference in terms of both getting numbers of people playing and getting top-level athletes.
Fantastic. We'll have to talk more about this a little later this weekend. Thanks for being with us. Cincinnati closes it out 11-2 over Colorado, and they're on their way to a semifinals berth. And so that will do it for our broadcast of this game. Coming up next, 5 p.m. Central, that's about 50 minutes from now, you'll be able to check out the U19 Boys Division. It'll be North Carolina Triforce taking on Minnesota Superior, the home team. So hope you join us for that. For Kyle Weisbrod and all of us here at Ultiworld, I'm Charlie Eisenhood signing off here in Blaine, Minnesota.